Hello and welcome to another episode of Stumped, where brown guys talk about their one true actual love, cricket. So today, as always, I'm joined by the man who's been banned from the Pramadasa for trying to overthrow the Lanka cricket board, Asan Amza. And once again, we're lucky to be joined by the PCB's Fine and Repayment Enforcement Officer, Fahad Javaid. Great to have you both on the show again.
Thanks for having
Hi,
us.
guys.
So today, look, we'll be talking about, of course, the Super 8s, the two semi-final games that were both incredible, but in their own ways, and of course, our predictions ahead of the 2026 T20 World Cup Grand Final. But first, the Super 8s. They went pretty much as expected, didn't they, Asim?
Yeah, no, they did. I think as a Sri Lankan fan myself, it was quite disappointing considering that, yes, we lost all three of our matches, but it was the manner in which we lost those games. The first Super 8 match against England, I thought, okay, 147 on a Palakina wicket. We've already chased 180 against Australia earlier in the tournament. Why not the same? But it was just the way they capitulated. I think the English spinners, especially Will Jacks, assessed the conditions really well, got the ball to kind of stop on that sort of sticky wicket. And with quite a few of the dismissals as well, you could kind of see that some of the batters, kind of checked their shots. And it was just really soft dismissals. A really poor performance against England. They did really well against New Zealand up until the 16th over of the first innings. And then McConkey and Santner just went hell for leather and, propelled themselves to 160. And yeah, they just bowled phenomenal. I think, all their fast bowlers looked really well. Rachin Ravindra rolled his arm, got, I think, a 4 and just looked unplayable. But disappointing, and I kind of sensed this, especially after that loss against Zimbabwe, because whenever we qualify from the group stages, we capitulate in the Super 8s and the Super 10s in other tournaments. And it's really disappointing because you have all that momentum that you created, you have all that confidence that you gained, especially beating Australia. And when you go into like the next round, especially in your own home conditions, like you capitulate. And yeah, no, just really disappointing. I think that match against Pakistan was a good match, but that's the issue with Sri Lankan cricket. We only perform our best cricket on dead rubber wickets when we're done. So yeah, disappointing overall. But you look at the way England played. That match against New Zealand, Rehan Ahmed. What a find he's been for England. Yeah, disappointing on Sri Lanka's perspective. New Zealand were ruthless. Super 8s over England as well, and they deserve to play in the semi-finals. In the other group as well, I think it just went pretty much as expected. India and South Africa qualified. West Indies showed really good glimpses at time as well, so it was kind of nice to see that sort of brand of cricket by the West Indies, just with a lot of flair and aggression. And Zimbabwe as well, despite losing all three matches, Brian Bennett should hold his head high. I think he's just been a phenomenal find for Zimbabwe. And I think one of the pivotal players for Zimbabwe going through this transition period, because you look at that Zimbabwe squad, it's an aging squad, but it's also got a lot of youngsters as well. But, I don't think Brendan Taylor, Graham Creamer, Craig Irvine, who wasn't in the T20 squad, I think I'd Sikandar Raza as well. I think, they probably got another couple of years before they call it quits. But, with the likes of Bennett, Diane Myers, Ben Curran, Brad Evans, Musrabani, and Garava, they look quite set for that transition period. And they have like quite a few players as well, playing in Zimbabwe that didn't get selected. So yeah, no, overall, like very good Super 8 so far. Really good semifinals, which we'll get to in a bit, and obviously the grand final itself. But yeah, Fahad, like what was your take on the Super 8s?
And I think, based on our discussion in the last episode, we pretty much got the semi-finalists right. We were 75% right. The one team that really did end up impressing us all was England, which we did not expect to do so well on Sri Lankan and Indian pitches because we've seen their record. And if you look at the previous ODI World Cup, England was a very good team, but they were very disappointing. They could not read the pitch conditions. They could not adapt to the conditions. And this was what we really expected from England this time round as well. But they really ended up shocking us. And they played very, very good cricket, even till the semi-final. chasing 253 in a semi-final, 20 overs, and losing just by 7 runs. You can tell how well they played. So I think England played very well. Jofra Archer looks like he's gotten some rhythm and he's back in form. Yes, he was disappointing in the semi-final, but I haven't seen Jofra Archer bowling with such rhythm, such momentum for the past 7-8 months now. So I think he would be very crucial for England going forward. And Pakistan, Sri Lanka, yes, they have been very disappointing, but I think it was pretty much expected that because we were counting on England to play very, very bad. We thought that just either of Sri Lanka and Pakistan might make it through, not because they were playing good cricket, but just because of the fact that we were, undermining England so much. So I think what happened with Pakistan, Sri Lanka was expected. England played very good. And it's just, I was very disappointed with the England and New Zealand result. For me, that was a freak result because I think New Zealand should have won. And if New Zealand would have won, I think we would have had better semi-finals. It could have been South Africa versus England and then India versus New Zealand, where I think, because I had been hoping since the start of this tournament for New Zealand and South Africa to go all the way. They were both playing very, very good cricket, and it was just very disappointing to see South Africa go out the way that they did go out. And it was when the New Zealand South Africa semi-final was decided because of the England and New Zealand result. You knew that one of these teams, one of these two good teams, will have to go out of the tournament. And I think that was just a little disappointing for me. I would have loved to see both of them play the final. But nonetheless, I think we've had a good, Super 8. And I think this has been a really, really good World Cup.
I think I just want to sort of bring it back to both Sri Lanka and Pakistan's performance in the Super 8s. I think both of you have correctly mentioned it was overall quite disappointing. But one thing that I found really interesting was that even in that so-called dead rubber that Asan mentioned, which was technically a dead rubber for Sri Lanka, it wasn't a dead rubber for Pakistan. And there was, I would say, for the first maybe like almost 8 or 9 overs of Sri Lanka's innings in the second innings of that match, where there was almost this scark of expectation that, oh my God, Pakistan once again, through mathematics and the crazy world of cricket, are going to find themselves in a semi-final once again. Just probably as one of the most undeserved semi-final placings you probably find in recent history. But there was still that interest, that tamasha almost, right? And then you have to, like, hats off to Dasan Shanaka, man. Like, he really did take that game away from any potential Pakistan placement in the semifinals. Some entertaining games, but yeah, largely what we expected. I think India's loss to South Africa was more significant than maybe people thought it might be. My personal feeling was I actually did have South Africa as favorites for that game, just because I thought, India hadn't really hit their strides to that point in the tournament. And but the way in which South Africa dismantled India was quite shocking and quite surprising, and actually put India on the back foot. I mean, their last match against the West Indies was a do or die. It was basically a quarterfinal. So, but that did lead us to the revelation of finally understanding where Sanju Samson fits on that batting order. And I think they look really good, even though Abhishek has still struggled to perform. I feel like that top three, or at least should I say, having Sanju as the right-hander starting and Ishan Kishan coming in at number 3, both of which are in fantastic form, and are very top-heavy in terms of the batting order. They are required to set a foundation because the rest of the team comes in and are able to sort of start attacking from ball 1, and that's their job. In fact, I think what I found looking at India throughout this tournament is that if there isn't a foundation, then the middle order of India, starting probably from Surya Kumar Yadav, if he doesn't have a partner on the other side, is that their middle order actually struggles to build an innings. However, the middle order is like almost perfectly suited to continue with a high run rate or attacking net flow. So if the openers, or at least the top 3, can sort of get a decent enough foundation, then the middle order really comes into effect. And I feel like the team has been built around that kind of approach with their middle order batters. So it really is key that India's top order performs for the rest of the powerful batting lineup to come into play. And that, of course, talking about power hitting, brings us to the semi-finals. We had two incredible semi-finals, incredible in very different ways. The first semi-final was between South Africa and New Zealand, played at Eden Gardens. And the other semi-final was between India and England. And as I mentioned, both of them were pretty incredible, but in very different ways. I think New Zealand's performance against South Africa in that semi-final was insane. I mean, arguably one of the most insane displays of power hitting you've ever seen or you will ever see in any T20 match, regardless of whether it's a World Cup match or a club match or whatever it was. It was insane. I mean, Asin, what was your take on Tim Seifert and obviously Finn Allen's performance in that semi-final?
Pure destruction. That's all you could say, really. I mean, really took the wind out of South Africa. 178 maybe could have been an under-par score, probably about 20-30 runs short on that Eden Gardens wicket. But the manner that they went, like, was just ridiculous. Like, utter destruction. And this is a South African lineup, a bowling lineup that boasts the likes of Jansen, Edie, Rabada, Maharaj. Like, these are prime bowlers, and they just made them look like absolute amateurs. So, yeah, it was like, that's all I could say, because I was speechless when I was watching it as well. Like, just utter destruction. And if India don't get their shit right in the final, you know what to expect. And the thing is with this New Zealand batting lineup is, okay, fine, it was the top three that did most of the damage, but especially after the Sri Lanka match as well, New Zealand bats deep. McConkey, Santner towards the end, you saw how they took the game away from Sri Lanka in that match in the Super 8. So yeah, I mean, like, and their bowling lineup as well. They've got. There was a question, I think, circulating around New Zealand's bowling lineup, especially about 5 years ago when Tim Southee, Trent Boult, were planning on like retiring and stuff. But you look at players like Duffy, Lockie Ferguson, Matt Henry, Rachin Ravindra, Mitch Santner, Glenn Phillips can roll his arm as well. So, they've got a relatively complete squad. Excellent fielding unit, by the way. Yeah. Glenn Phillips kind of dropped to Dolly, but still, like, shit happens. But it was just like New Zealand looked complete. I think New Zealand are going to be India's biggest threat. I think they're going to probably be the strongest team, aside from South Africa, that India have played in this tournament. But I still think that India would probably has the capability to get over the line. And, I think it'll be the first time we'll see like a consecutive T20 World Cup champion, in my opinion.
I think, yeah, exactly. With New Zealand, people tend to overlook the fact that they have a really powerful batting lineup that bats really, really deep, exactly as you mentioned. And yeah, Luke McConkey seems to be this new revelation. I think half of it is because he's an excellent player, and the other half is because he just has a fun name to say. But yeah, New Zealand, like it's about time. So many people look to New Zealand and be like, oh, they always punch above their weight. They always punch above their weight. And I think that's just, I think that's not fair. I think we should always see New Zealand as a threat, right? Like, they are not underdogs. They do not punch above their weight. They have amazing players. They have always had great players. And this new batch of this team that's come through is a fantastic team full of superstars. Like, there's nothing punching above their weight at all. I would argue they're almost playing as expected. I mean, they're playing Finn Allen's performance you could never expect, so to speak. But I do think New Zealand posed this threat that we shouldn't ever be undermining in any sort of a way. And Finn Allen's, bro, like, I mean, he's kind of come to form now. I mean, he's had, I think, 4 or 5 pretty mediocre years in the BBL until just this last year, where he's kind of established a bit of a name for himself. He's bulked up, he's big, he looks like a Viking, he's got the piercings, he's grown out his beard, and it just works. It all works for him, right? He's got the aura, he's got the charisma, the way in which he plays. It's fantastic. But yeah, so what about you, Fahad? Your take on the New Zealand game. What did you think about it?
Well, first of all, I would really like to add on your point that I think New Zealand has gotten comfortable with the idea of being called underdogs and, like walking into tournament with, so like, I think they just don't feel any pressure because of, the way that people call them dark horses or underdogs. They've just gotten used to that reputation. But the fact is that that reputation has been built because of the lack of white ball trophies that New Zealand has won, right? So New Zealand, they play really good cricket throughout the year. They play very good cricket in ICC tournaments, but something just happens in the semi-final and final and they really need to get over the line to get this monkey off their back, where people stop calling them underdogs. And this is a reputation that they're carrying into every tournament now, and which is why I said it before, I will say it again, that this is something that South Africa and New Zealand really would want to get off their back. And it's about time that they make use of these opportunities. The Champions Trophy 2025 was a very good opportunity for New Zealand, and it was very sad that Mark Henry got injured just a day before the final. But this time round, I have a feeling that New Zealand they look very disciplined and they look very determined. Don't forget the bold decision that Mitch Santner took on the night of on the eve of the semi-final, where at the toss he decided to bench his top bowler Jacob Duffy, who is the top-rated T20 bowler. He decided to bench him. He brings in McConkey. He gives him the second over, and McConkey gets 2 wickets, and he then immediately takes him out of attack. So it shows that they're not playing by reputation, and they are looking to assess the conditions and play according to those conditions. They seem like a very disciplined side, and they seem like a very determined side this time round. And the first semi-final, I think New Zealand deserved to win that way, because yes, South Africa had a bad day, but that was primarily because of the strategy that Mitch Santner had set. So we were expecting New Zealand to get into the final, yes, but in such fashion, yes, it was brutal. And New Zealand will be going into the final with a lot of confidence. Yes, you would say, on the other hand, India also played a very good semi-final versus England. But the way that New Zealand just annihilated South Africa, I think they'll be taking in a lot of confidence into that final.
Yeah, speaking about the India and England match, I mean, an incredible match as well, like in a completely different way, right? It was not one-sided, although it's one of those games which probably seemed more one-sided than it actually was. When you look at the stats, you're like, oh, that's a really close game. But if you were watching the game, you'd be like, oh, it didn't seem as close. But it was still, maybe that's a credit to the way in which England, and in particular Bethel, shaped their chase, right? They never seemed like they were out of control or they were frenetic. Almost 500 runs were scored. I think it was like 499 runs were scored in a ridiculous number of runs. Powerhouse hitting on both sides. I think the highest number of sixes in a T20 World Cup match. Just remarkable all around. Sanju Samson, as I mentioned once again, was leading India from the front, just playing that cool, calm persona of his. Which seems to sort of translate into his batting. The calmer he seems, the more aggressive he plays, which I think is very good. It just shows that he's in, I think, a better state of mind nowadays as well. And right across the board, like kind of what I was mentioning before, you'll notice that India's middle order came in and they didn't have to build an innings. They had to continue the momentum. And I think that's really what they're good at doing, right? They were able to come in and basically hit from the get-go. And I think Tilak Verma being at number 5 is a far better position for him than number 3. That's not to say I actually think Tilak Varma is one of the few T20 specialists. I mean, you can't really call him a T20 specialist, but I think he's one of the few batters in this new wave of Indian cricketers who could actually be successful across all 3 formats. But I think in T20, he was initially brought on to play this anchoring kind of a role. But I think the aggressor, the aggression of being at number 5 in tandem with, say, like a Hardik Pandya, a Shivam Dube, I think is a lot better for him. I think that reduces some of the pressure on him when he's got other big hitters on the other side. I think actually, oddly enough, Ishan Kishan is a great number 3 for India. I think he could be a better option for an anchor role if needed, because I think he's more able to sort of turn on the aggression when it's needed, because he's naturally very aggressive. But yeah, incredible match. Asin, you were watching the match. You were commenting on it as we were watching it. What were your thoughts, man? Especially maybe England's take or England's approach to chasing that mammoth score.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a total that was very, very hard to chase. I think the credit needs to be given to Sanju Samson, just the way his approach. And you kind of look at his situation as well as how he was drafted into the team as well. There was a lot of questions going around his inclusion, but I think he was able to justify it well. 2 crucial innings. That do or die match against the West Indies, where he just steered India, and it just seemed like India were under control despite the total that they were chasing. And even that match as well, I think, that semi-final against England, he just looked destructive. I just hope that, like you said as well, I think areas of concern for India right now are two things. It's probably their bowling and their middle order as well. Despite having Bumrah and Hardik Pandya and Akshay Patel and Varun Chakravarti, you know, Shivam Dubey doesn't really offer that much to this team. It's like once in a blue moon kind of performance. Okay, fine, he turned up in the final of the previous edition of the World Cup, but like for the rest of the tournament, he looked like Scooby Doo. Like this guy is just, I mean, gave away 30 runs against Zimbabwe, gave like bold crap that like really crap death over. And I think, look, the guy's a good player. You've seen what he did in the IPL, but it's just there are far better players, I think, in the Indian team right now that could take his spot. Maybe I think Shivam Dubey probably needs to be dropped, find his form back again, and kind of understand what his role really is. I mean, if he's going to be a big hitter, he hasn't really shown that in the World Cup. And if he's a death bowler, he hasn't really shown that either. So
I think no. I think he has. I think he's proven himself as a big hitter of spin, and a large reason why he was brought up the order. And when it first happened, I was also like, "What the hell, Dubey?" I think I even messaged you guys. I was like, "Dubey, are you serious? What the hell are you doing, Gotham Gambhir?" But I think the main thing is that he hits bombs against spin, and they brought him up to number 4 because of Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid was the threat, and he did take him apart. It was actually a good decision. But I'm with you. I think he's a horrible bowler, and I don't think he should be called an all-rounder. If anything, he's a middle to lower order batter who can definitely hit a long ball and is very good against spin. But I think outside of that, a lot of his range is limited. I mean, yeah. What about Bethel? Tell me about that, Asim.
Yeah, like Bethel was just destructive. I remember when we were doing the Ashes preview or one of the reviews, I said like, okay, there are 2 players that England we need to consider, like 2 batters England we need to consider. Asad Tribe, Jersey born, plays for Glamorgan, and Jacob Bethel as well. Jacob Bethel, I even mentioned as well, epitomizes modern day baseball. You can kind of tell this guy grew up in the Caribbean just by the flair that he has when he bats. He just makes it look simple, like, and that's what the best players do. They make really hard things look simple, and I think he's going to be a great asset. Gun fielder, can roll his arm over as well, can get a wicket or 2, but yeah, for me, just like a phenomenal player. I'm really happy. I would love to see this England side prosper. I think, if you're going to be talking about Jacob Bethel, you also have to talk about Josh Butler as well and how disappointing he's been in this whole tournament. Opening the batting, couldn't really score a lot of runs. Maybe it's time that he kind of gives up T20 cricket for England. Even Harry Brook as well looked really good this tournament. Did some fantastic innings. Will Jacks also looked good. So if you're going to credit just Jacob Bethel, you need to credit also these players as well that did show up during the tournament. Unfortunately, 250 odd was a bit too much for England to chase, but just the intent and their approach, I just wish the Sri Lanka team adopted that instead of thinking, Machang, 250, we can't chase it. Might as well just call it a day. Nah, like I don't want that. Team.
Exactly, you're right. I mean, there was never at any point, despite the fact that they had to go at almost 13 and over from the outset, there was never a point until right at the very end where England's required run rate exceeded 14. So they kept up to par with India, and the large part of that, especially through the middle overs, was because of Jacob Bethel and how he approached a lot of India's bowlers. You mentioned Harry Brook. Harry Brook has been sensational this World Cup, but until he came up against Jasprit Bumrah. Fahad, how did you see that whole sort of matchup play out?
And if there's one player who really made the difference, it was Jasprit Bumrah. The 18th over which he came on to bowl was, I think he gave away just 8 runs in that over. This is phenomenal. I think six runs.
He gave 6 runs in the 18th, and I think it was 8 runs in the 16th.
In the 16th. I mean, like 2 overs, 14 runs in a high scoring game. I think that pretty much, settled it. England, to be fair, never really looked, to get close to that total. Yes, they did get a sniff towards the end, but you always thought that they're chasing 30 runs too many. Yes, they did not let the run rate go above 14. A lot of credit for that, yes, goes to Jacob Bethel. But other than that, England never really felt, you never really felt that they're in the game. Yes, it was madness. It was raining 4s and 6s. That was it. It was very entertaining to watch, but you never felt as if England would be able to get over the line. At no point in that match did India let England go ahead in at any point. So Jasprit Bumrah, I think he will be the player to watch out for in the final as well. He has been phenomenal in this World Cup. He's bowling at an economy rate of 6.66 in T20s. That is just outstanding. It's almost as if, like if whenever there's a problem, whenever there's something bad going on, the captain can just turn to him and bring him on at any point in the match. He can open the bowling, he can bowl in the middle overs, and he's a tremendous death overs bowler. So I think he's a modern great, and I don't think that there are too many better bowlers than Jasprit Bumrah. He will be one player that New Zealand will really be looking out for, and I don't think Finn Allen will be able to face Jasprit Bumrah and treat him the way that he treated Rabada. I know Jasprit Bumrah seems a class apart at this point.
I think just to add to Fahad's point as well, I think, yes, Jasprit Bumrah is somebody that New Zealand will be doing a lot of homework on as well. But there's another bowler as well, I think, is Varun Chakravarti. Looked pretty decent this tournament so far. Mystery spinner. And that's the question, isn't it? Like, how would New Zealand tackle Bumrah, but also the mystery spin of Varun Chakravarti? Because if Chakravarti gets a couple of wickets and kind of shakes that New Zealand batting lineup as well, you could also, I think, Akshay Patel would accompany him quite well as well, because Akshay Patel is also like just a line and length kind of bowler, very hard to get away, like very difficult to hit him for any sort of boundary. So I think also, obviously the priority would be Jasprit Bumrah, but also I think second would be Chakravarti as well, because I think he looked quite good this tournament so far. So,
but I would just like to I would just like to differ here, just because like Varun Chakravarti, yes, he walked into this tournament as the number one T20 bowler, but he, in my opinion, he has not lived up to his reputation. He had a few good games, but South Africa, David Miller, and Bethel, England, they've both shown that Varun Chakravarti can be targeted. And by what we are hearing right now, that the pitch for the final will favor swing and seam more than it'll favor spin. So I think it'll be a little difficult for Varun Chakravarti. He would not be walking in with the same confidence that he had walking into this tournament. So I just think that Varun Chakravarti might be a little on the back foot, and you never know that Varun Chakravarti might even lose his spot to Kuldeep Yadav.
So, given the fact that we've had a look at the semifinals, now comes, I guess, the most important question, which is, who do you think is going to win the 2026 T20 World Cup Grand Final between India and New Zealand, and who are the players that you think are going to stand out? Fahad, I'll start with you.
You would think that India walks in, has hot favorites, home conditions. But see, there's a certain amount of pressure which comes with the favorites tag and playing in your home conditions. I think India will still have, memories of the ghost of the 2023 ODI World Cup final, the same ground. See, the pressure will be there. The pressure of being the home team in front of a jam-packed 130,000 people. I think the capacity is for the Narendra Modi Stadium, in front of 130,000. I think India will have that pressure, but yes, they still go in as favorites. The thing that goes in New Zealand's favor, as I just mentioned, is that they will be walking in as underdogs, right? So they don't have too much pressure on them, and they look like a very determined, a very disciplined side, and they've played India quite a lot in recent times. They've had a bilateral series just before the World Cup. And you always feel that New Zealand and Australia use these bilateral series before the World Cup just for their preparations and not mainly focused towards winning, but more to prepare themselves for the World Cup. And New Zealand have come in prepared. You can see it. So I think it's going to be a very, very good match to watch. I have a feeling that this might just be New Zealand's tournament.
I mean, big call. What about you, Asen?
I think I'm going to stick with India on this one as well. Yeah, just because, I think they'll probably want to go one up compared to 3 years ago when they lost the final against Australia. But I think this is the match where everything will go right for India. Their top order will work well. Their middle order is going to come in, and also their bowling as well. But yeah, I mean, as much as I want New Zealand to win, sorry, Naveen, I think India got this.
I think India's become the team that the rest of the world hates, which is fine. You know, in many ways, that kind of shows that they're arguably, at least on paper, the best team. You know, I mean, everyone
100%
hated
they
the
are.
Australian team. Yeah, everyone hated the Australian team when they were the greats, right? Like everyone appreciated how good they were, but everyone wanted them to lose unless you were an Australian fan.
Yeah.
So I feel like that it's kind of getting to that point with India, although some of the hatred might be more related to the political aspect of cricket. But anyway, we'll put that aside for now. Yeah, I think, look, I mean, obviously as an Indian fan, I want India to win. And they do go in favorites, exactly as both of you have mentioned. But I think it's going to be very close. And I do think if New Zealand were to get that monkey off their back, as Fahad was saying, like this would be the perfect opportunity for them to do it. But it's going to be tough. And I think a large part of that is going to be Bumrah. And Sanju Samson, the way he's been playing. Honestly, I feel like those two are going to be standouts for India. And I think, as was mentioned previously as well, yes, Finn Allen looks terrifying, but I don't think he's not going to be able to have that approach against Arshdeep Singh and Bumrah in the first 6 overs. So the power play is going to be important, as it usually is, but I think especially for New Zealand's batting lineup, you know, they have a great batting lineup, but they don't necessarily have the power through the middle and lower order that, say, a team like India does. I mean, you've got Santner, you've got McConkey, but if you're comparing to, say, India's powerful middle and lower order, provided they have a good foundation, I think that's a big difference between the two teams. It's been great to see Rachin Ravindra sort of coming into form, but more with the ball than the bat.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how he plays on this wicket. But yeah, I think it'll be India, but I do think it will be a close match. And I think there'll be lots of instances where those 130,000 Indian fans will be sitting in silence, which will just make it all the more intriguing. So yeah, I'm leaning towards India, but there is still a part of me outside of being an Indian fan that would be really happy if New Zealand won this match. But yeah, as you both mentioned, the haunting memories of Narendra Modi Stadium are still there. One of my favorite memes, I think, was someone saying that they've located a US base under the Narendra Modi Stadium. So can Iran please bomb it? So anyway, but putting that all aside, so great to have your predictions, great to have your comments. I'd like to end, obviously, this episode with our final segment. And that is basically, what's got you stumped? Fahad, what's got you stumped?
Man, the PCB imposing a fine of 50 lakh per player for the dismal performance by the Pakistan cricket team in the World Cup. I mean, this is not the first time that the Pakistan team has underperformed, to be honest. And I mean, it's not going to end like this. I mean, a fine will not, get them to perform better. I mean, unfortunately, cricket or sports does not work that way, and that shows what can happen when you have a politician in charge of the cricket board. So you cannot run cricket like a bureaucracy, and it just doesn't work this way. It's also the other way around. So the chairman, he incentivizes players that they will be awarded cash prizes if they win. So, I mean, you cannot win matches with money, and, giving them a challan certainly will not, help the cause. And, it's the team does not need like an overhaul. It does not need too many changes. It does not need these fines. What it really needs is, I think, better strategy and better direction, better captaincy, maybe. These cosmetic changes will really not work.
I mean, it's ridiculous to think, right? I mean, I think even like Usman Khawaja had said on Instagram, he's like, this isn't going to help them play any better. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why would you find play? Everyone goes out there to try their absolute best, right? And sure, they didn't have a good tournament, but you can't find them for trying their best, right? It's more a reflection of, as you mentioned, the lack of preparation or some of the poor management behind the scenes to not utilize the incredible talent that Pakistan has. But to find them is just, unfortunately, it's also the most Pakistan response to their performance. You can't. I mean, it's never-ending entertainment with the PCB and the Pakistan team. You can't. Like, I think if you translate or if you convert it to US dollars, it's something like 17.5K or so. So I mean, that's tough. And I think, for some of the bigger Pakistani players, that's not going to be much. But for some of the young ones just coming in, that's a significant amount of money, right? Like that it could really detrimental to some of the younger players on that Pakistani team, and I don't know how they expect that.
Imagine what Sahibzada Farhan must be going through. He ended up being the highest scoring batter in T20 World Cup history, and to be fined 50 lakh rupees right after that.
Just Pakistan, man. I love Pakistan. You just can't hate them, honestly. And yeah, Asad, what about you, man? What's got you stumped, man?
You know what? Quite a lot of things actually. Sri Lanka, in general, I think their performance in Super 8's just got me stumped. But that's obviously, I've already said my piece about Sri Lanka and stuff. But it was actually Dustin Shanaka's comment. For two things. I think it was after the match against New Zealand, for some idiotic reason, and especially the fact that this match was played in Premadasa, Shanaka won the toss, decided to bowl first, which was ridiculous because we've had this conversation so many times. The one thing you do in Premadasa is you bat first, and then we flopped that match, and then he proceeds to go on social media and. I swear to God, like, this thing really pissed me off, right? He said, we misread the pitch. Like, bro, you're Sri Lankan, man. We've played 90% of our matches in Premadasa. How can you misread the pitch? You know what it's going to do, right? Just because it's a World Cup, you think it's going to change. Are you out of mind? I'm sorry. And then the second one was that he started blaming the fans, saying that the fans were too negative. I'm sorry.
That was ridiculous.
Are we negative?
The best fan support of all the teams in the World Cup has been the Sri Lankan fans and the Nepalese fans, I guess. Dude, the amount of support, he should be ashamed for the performance they put up for such an incredible audience that rocked up to all of their matches.
And the fact that, he said that, the fans are being too negative. We're not being too negative. We're reflecting what we're seeing right now. We've raised these issues so many times. Shanaka should have not been playing this tournament. They kept fiddling with the middle order. Sorry, not the middle order, the top order. They kept bringing in Bishara, and then they kept dropping him. They replaced him with KJP, and then after that, they just said, you know what? Let's stick with Mendes and Pathum Nissanka as the openers. I'm sorry, there are so many issues going on with Sri Lanka. The one thing that actually was working was our top order, which was Nissanka and Mendes. Why fix something that's not broken? Everything else is broken. Our middle order is broken. Our bowling lineup. How many injuries did we have? Like, it took 3 injuries in this team for them to select Dilshan Madhushankar, right? Lianage has no business playing this. But the fact that Shanaka decided to say that and then score like 50 of 20 against Pakistan in a dead rubber, like, bro, we know what... And the reason why we get annoyed is because we know what this team has the potential of doing, right? They've got, class bowlers. Tushara couldn't even make it to this squad, right? But you have players like him, Madhushankar, Patirana, Tikshana, Hasaranga, Esha Malinga, and that's just the bowling lineup as well, right? Batters you have like Chamindo Vikramasinghe, Vishan Halambage, Pavan Rabdaika actually was a very surprise inclusion, but he turned out to be really good. But players like this, right? And the fact that he went online and then he apologized afterwards, like, kind of shows you the state of Sri Lankan cricket right now. The only good thing is Jayasuriya is leaving. I would really love to have Jonathan Trott as the coach because I've seen what he's done with that Afghanistan side for the past 4 years, and they just kept going from strength to strength to strength. Tough, they had a tough group with South Africa and New Zealand and couldn't qualify. But if Jonathan Trott was able to do that with Sri Lanka, with Afghan cricket, I can't wait to see what he could do with Sri Lankan cricket. But even then, it's just the coach. The administration is the biggest Achilles heel.
I think Jonathan Trott would be a pretty good match, actually, for Sri Lanka, to be honest. And yeah, let's hope something like that does happen. But yeah, overall, very disappointing from Sri Lanka, unfortunately, especially being one of the other hosts and having such incredible support behind them. What's got me stumped, actually, interestingly enough, is what Fahad mentioned earlier on today. It's Varun Chakravarti. Exactly. He's actually who's got me stumped. Not literally stumped, because I'm sure that would happen if I was able to face him. But I feel like, as Fahad was saying, that in the last few matches, actually pretty much since India entered the Super 8, he's been struggling a bit. But like, not from a lack of trying. That's the thing, right? It feels like once India got into the big leagues, top opposition batters seem to be able to read him now, or at least counter-attack him. He doesn't seem as threatening as both the West Indies and England went after him, as did South Africa. David Miller in particular, as you mentioned. Bethel really took a liking to him, like literally stepping away and reverse flicking him to the boundary like he was facing some junior bowling machine. Even Zimbabwe got stuck into him, like Sikandar Raza took him to the cleaners, right? Clearing the front leg, or just simply like step hitting him over covers, right? I'm worried for when he comes up against Finn Allen. If he comes up against Finn Allen, if Finn Allen is able to survive the power play against India's pace attack, he's going to come across Chakravarti, and I'd be worried against that matchup. It's a true pitch. It's got a slightly slower bounce with the red and black soil mix at Ahmedabad. I can see that Viking of a man just smashing him to all parts if he faces him, if that matchup does take place. But it just seems that other teams have decided that the best way to counter Chakravarti is to target him, which essentially nullifies one of India's weapons in the middle overs. Knowing you have a couple of overs of Bumrah means that teams are probably going to target either Varun or Akshar as much as possible. But the mystery of Varun seems to be completely nullified by pure aggression. It causes Chakravarti to just kind of bowl straight seam-up deliveries at pace, basically as damage control. And that, I think, gives batters the perfect opportunity to just work them into gaps and keep eking out runs. So I don't know. Is he going to become another Ajantha Mendis, another mystery spinner whose mystery has been found out, or is he going to adapt? He is 34 as well, so it's not like he's got a number of years for him to make these significant changes. But as a spin bowler, you can keep playing right up until your 40s if you're good enough. But it really does I feel anyway, watching the way that players have been targeting him, that a bit of that mystery has sort of faded away a little bit. I don't know.
But here's the thing, Naveen. Like, I think that's just the nature of a mystery spinner, right? Like, if you look at Ajantha Mendis in the first couple of years, when he was playing international cricket, bamboozled everyone, right? But when batsmen start decoding you and they start hitting you and stuff, a natural response is to bowl quicker. It's to eliminate that threat and kind of keep the batsman guessing. Because if you show all your tricks, right, to a batsman, okay, fine, you're going to have some immediate success. But in the long run as well, people are going to find you out. That's why Tikshana is, he's still a class bowler, but I think that's why he gets hit a lot more. It's because people have found out how to play him. Ajantha Mendis, Chakravarti, the same thing happened as well. So I think what's really important is Chakravarti, at least for the next year or so, find his strength and use the other variations that he has, because he's a quality bowler, right?
Well, yeah. Well, look, that's pretty much it for our episode today. We're all excited for the grand final. Some probably more than others, let's be honest. But please make sure you join us for our next episode after the World Cup winners are crowned. Subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon to never miss another episode. And of course, please like the video and share it. And comment below on topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Also, be sure to follow Fahad's channel, Off Stump with Fahad Javaid. We'll add a link in the description below. So please head over there and watch his incredible and prolific content. Quick plug, Fahad.
Thank you so much. And yes, as Naveen mentioned, do not forget to like and subscribe the video, and do check out my channel, Off Stump with Fahad Javaid. I'm covering this entire World Cup and the matches to come. I'll be covering the PSL as well. So I really look forward to having you guys over there.
And yeah, ensure, like we said, we'll put his link in our description. So head over to Off Stump with Fahad Javaid. Otherwise, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Excellent work, everyone. Thank you all for being part of this, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys.